The blood-streaked sun descended over the parched horizon of Blackwater Creek as Virginia Lawson staggered through her front door, her trembling fingers clutching the wooden frame for support. The left side of her face throbbed, swollen and purple, matching the scattered bruises that decorated her arms like macabre jewelry. Her husband Elliott's rage had been particularly vicious tonight, his fury over her barrenness reaching new heights after the doctor confirmed what they had feared for 3 years of marriage. It was 1876 in the Montana Territory, and a woman's worth was often measured by her ability to bear children. At 23, Virginia had failed at what many considered her primary purpose, and her husband had made sure she understood the magnitude of her failure. "You're useless to me." Elliott had screamed, his whiskey-soured breath burning her face as his fist connected with her cheekbone. 3 years and nothing to show for it. My father was right about you. Virginia collapsed onto the rough wooden floor of their modest homestead, her honey blonde hair falling across her face as tears carved clean paths through the dust on her cheeks. She had been a schoolteacher before marriage, intelligent, vibrant, full of ambition. Now she was merely a disappointment, a broken promise. Outside, a horse whinnied and hooves pounded the hard-packed earth. Virginia froze, terror seizing her chest. Elliott had gone to the saloon after the beating, but perhaps he'd returned sooner than expected to continue what he'd started. She crawled toward the bedroom, desperate to hide, when a firm knock rattled the door. "Hello, anyone home?" The voice wasn't Elliott's whiskey-slurred growl, but something deeper, steadier. Virginia remained silent, pressing herself against the wall. "Madam, I saw someone come in. I'm just passing through and wondering if I could water my horse at your well." Gathering her courage, Virginia stood on shaking legs and cracked open the door, keeping her bruised face in the shadows. "The well's round back," she said softly. "Help yourself." The man at the door was tall, his broad shoulders silhouetted against the dying sun. His face was partially obscured by the brim of a worn leather hat, but she could see the concerned frown that formed when he caught sight of her. "Madam, you're hurt." He took a step forward, and Virginia instinctively retreated. "I don't mean to intrude, but it's nothing," she insisted, though her voice betrayed her. "Just clumsy is all." The stranger removed his hat, revealing sun-bronzed skin and eyes the color of a summer storm. "The name's Kieran Callahan. I'm a rancher from up north, and with all due respect, madam, that ain't the mark of clumsiness." Virginia felt something inside her crumble under the weight of his kindness. "My husband will be back soon," she said, her voice barely audible. Understanding darkened Kieran's features. "I see." He replaced his hat and nodded respectfully. "I'll water my horse and be on my way then." As he turned to leave, Virginia called after him, surprising herself. "There's fresh bread on the table if you're hungry, Mr. Callahan." She didn't know why she'd said it. Perhaps it was the loneliness, or the simple human kindness he'd shown her by not pretending her bruises were anything but what they were. Kieran hesitated, then nodded. "Much obliged, madam." While he tended to his horse, Virginia busied herself slicing bread and placing it alongside some preserves. Her hands shook as she worked, pain radiating through her ribs with each movement. She was setting the food on the table when Kieran returned, ducking his head as he entered the small cabin. "You didn't need to go to any trouble," he said, standing awkwardly by the door. "Please sit. It's not much, but it's fresh." Virginia kept her face downturned, aware of how hideous she must look. Kieran removed his hat again and took a seat. As he ate, his eyes kept returning to her injured face, though he tried to be discreet. "You live out here alone with your husband," Virginia nodded. 3 years now. Elliott runs the mercantile in town. Must get lonely out here." She hadn't thought about loneliness in a long time. It was simply her life. "I manage." Kieran finished his bread and stood. "I should be going. Thank you for your kindness, Mrs. Lawson, Virginia Lawson, Mrs. Lawson." He nodded, placing his hat back on his head. At the door, he paused. "If you ever find yourself in need of help, I've taken work at the Garrett Ranch about 5 miles west of here." Virginia's heart quickened at his words, but she shook her head. "Mr. Callahan, I appreciate your concern, but this is my life. I made vows." "Vows go both ways, Mrs. Lawson." His eyes held hers for a moment before he disappeared into the gathering dusk. Virginia closed the door behind him and leaned against it, a strange mix of emotions swirling within her. She'd never confided in anyone about Elliott's temper or his increasing violence. The shame of it and of her failure as a wife kept her silent. But Kieran Callahan had seen through her facade in an instant. She was still standing there when Elliott's wagon rattled up to the house an hour later. The sound sent her scurrying to the stove, stirring the stew she'd prepared earlier. Her husband burst through the door, his heavy footsteps uneven from drink. "Is supper ready?" he demanded, tossing his hat onto the table. "Yes, Elliott." Virginia kept her back to him, praying he was too drunk to notice the visitor's presence earlier. "Look at me when I'm talking to you," he snapped. Slowly, she turned, keeping her eyes lowered. Elliott grasped her chin roughly, forcing her face up to examine his handiwork. "You deserved worse," he muttered, releasing her with a shove. "Serving me half a man's life with no sons to carry my name." Virginia remained silent as she ladled stew into a bowl for him. There was nothing she could say that wouldn't enrage him further. As days passed, Virginia's bruises faded from angry purple to sickly yellow-green. Elliott's rage had temporarily burned itself out, leaving him merely sullen and distant. She found herself thinking of Kieran Callahan more often than she should, remembering his kind eyes and the dignity with which he'd treated her. One afternoon, while Elliott was in town, Virginia decided to take a walk to clear her head. She wandered farther than usual, following the creek that gave the nearby town its name. The late summer air was heavy with the scent of wildflowers and sun-warmed grass. She was so lost in thought that she didn't notice the rider approaching until he was almost upon her. Mrs. Lawson, her heart leaped at the familiar voice. Kieran Callahan sat atop a magnificent chestnut stallion, concern evident on his face. "Mr. Callahan," she acknowledged, suddenly conscious of her simple dress and loose hair. "What brings you this way?" "Checking fence lines for Mr. Garrett," he explained, dismounting. "You're looking better." Virginia touched her cheek self-consciously. "Time heals all wounds, they say." "Some wounds take more than time," Kieran replied softly. He led his horse as they walked together along the creek bank. "How have you been?" "Well enough." She hesitated, then added, "Elliott's been away at the store most days." Kieran nodded, understanding what she wasn't saying. "And you? What do you do with your days?" The question caught Virginia off guard. No one had asked about her life in so long. "I keep house, tend the garden. I used to teach school before I married. You miss it?" "Sometimes." Virginia picked a wildflower and twirled it between her fingers. "I miss the children, their eagerness to learn." They walked in comfortable silence for a while, the sun warming their shoulders. Virginia knew she should turn back. Elliott would be home soon, but she couldn't bring herself to end this peaceful moment. "What brought you to Blackwater Creek, Mr. Callahan?" she asked eventually. "Just passing through originally, but Mr. Garrett offered steady work and I'm tired of drifting." He glanced at her. "And please call me Kieran." Virginia smiled shyly. "Then I'm Virginia." "Virginia," he repeated as if tasting her name. "It suits you," she blushed, unused to compliments. "I should head back. Elliott will be home soon." Kieran nodded, though a shadow crossed his face at the mention of her husband. "May I escort you partway? That would be nice." As they neared her property, Virginia grew anxious. "You should go now, if Elliott saw you." Kieran frowned but nodded. "Will you be all right?" "Of course." The lie came easily after years of practice. "Virginia," Kieran said softly, "there are options if you ever need them." She shook her head firmly. "I made my choice, Mr. Callahan. Some choices can be unmade." He mounted his horse. "I'll be at the Garrett Ranch if you need anything at all." Virginia watched him ride away, a confusing mixture of emotions churning inside her. His kindness both comforted and terrified her. In another life, perhaps, but such thoughts were dangerous. She hurried home to prepare dinner, but Elliott was already there when she arrived, his wagon outside the house. Her stomach clenched with fear. "Where have you been?" He demanded the moment she entered. "Just walking by the creek," she said, moving quickly to the stove. Elliott grabbed her arm, spinning her to face him. "With who?" Virginia's blood ran cold. "No one, I was alone." "Liar." Elliott's face contorted with rage. "Mrs. Jenkins saw you with a man by the creek." "Who was he?" "Just a ranch hand asking directions." Virginia stammered, her heart pounding. I barely spoke to him. The slap came swiftly, knocking her against the table. You think I'm a fool? Running around with men while I slave at the store to provide for you. Elliott, please. Her plea was cut short by another blow. 3 years with no child, and now I know why, he snarled, looming over her. You've been unfaithful. No, Virginia cried, genuine shock in her voice. I would never. But Elliott was beyond reason, consumed by jealousy and the whiskey he'd clearly been drinking since returning home. His fists fell again and again until Virginia's world narrowed to pinpricks of pain and terror. When he finally stopped, she lay curled on the floor, blood trickling from her split lip. Elliott stood over her, breathing heavily. Get up and make dinner, he ordered. And don't ever let me catch you with another man again. Virginia couldn't move at first, her body a map of fresh pain. Slowly, using the table for support, she pulled herself up. She worked mechanically, preparing a meal she knew she wouldn't be able to eat, her mind detached from her broken body. That night, as Elliott slept soundly beside her, Virginia stared at the ceiling, tears silently tracking down her temples. For the first time, she allowed herself to imagine leaving, just walking out the door and never coming back. But where would she go? What would she do? A woman alone had few options in this world, especially one with no family to return to. Kieran's words echoed in her mind. There are options if you ever need them. Morning came, and with it, a decision. Virginia rose before Elliott, her body protesting every movement. She prepared his breakfast and packed his lunch for the store as always. When he left, barely speaking to her, she waited until his wagon disappeared down the road. Then she began gathering her few precious possessions, her mother's silver hairbrush, the book of poetry her father had given her, a small amount of money she'd saved in secret. She worked quickly, knowing Elliott sometimes returned home unexpectedly. By midday, she had a small bundle prepared and hidden under the bed. Tomorrow, she decided. Tomorrow she would leave while Elliott was at work and somehow make her way to the Garrett Ranch. Kieran would help her find safe passage farther east, perhaps to a city where she could teach again. Her plans were interrupted by the sound of approaching hooves. Virginia's heart raced. It was too early for Elliott to return. She peered through the window and saw 3 riders approaching. Relief washed over her when she didn't recognize any of them, until she realized that strange men arriving unannounced rarely meant good news. The men dismounted, and the leader, a burly man with a thick beard, pounded on her door. Mrs. Lawson, open up, please. Virginia hesitantly opened the door, keeping her bruised face partially hidden behind it. Yes, madam, I'm Sheriff Briggs from Blackwater Creek. These are my deputies. May we come in? We need to speak with you about your husband. Fear clutched at Virginia's heart as she stepped back, allowing them entry. Has something happened to Elliott? The sheriff removed his hat, his expression grave. I'm afraid there's been an incident at the store, madam. Your husband had an altercation with a customer, a rancher named Kieran Callahan. Virginia's knees weakened at Kieran's name. Is he? Mr. Callahan is fine, madam, though he took a beating. Your husband, however, has been arrested for assault. Mr. Callahan pressed charges after your husband attacked him without provocation. Relief and confusion warred within Virginia. I don't understand. Why would Elliott attack him? Sheriff Briggs exchanged uncomfortable glances with his deputies. According to witnesses, your husband accused Mr. Callahan of improper relations with you, madam. He was quite drunk and making quite a scene. Shame burned Virginia's cheeks. That's not true. I barely know Mr. Callahan. Be that as it may, your husband is being held in the town jail. The sheriff paused, his eyes taking in her visible bruises. Mrs. Lawson, did your husband do that to you? Virginia instinctively touched her face, years of habitual secrecy making her hesitate. I fell. Sheriff Briggs's expression made it clear he didn't believe her. Madam, Mr. Callahan mentioned to me that he had concerns about your welfare. He seemed quite worried about you returning home alone. Tears welled in Virginia's eyes. Even after being attacked by Elliott, Kieran's concern was for her safety. Is Mr. Callahan still in town? He's at the doctor's getting patched up. The sheriff shifted awkwardly. Mrs. Lawson, if your husband has been hurting you, now would be a good time to speak up. We can add those charges to the others. Virginia sank into a chair, overwhelmed. This unexpected turn of events had changed everything. How long will Elliott be held? At least until his trial in 2 weeks, possibly longer if he's convicted. 2 weeks. Virginia's mind raced with the possibilities this unexpected freedom presented. Thank you for telling me, Sheriff. After the lawman left, Virginia sat motionless at her table for a long time, weighing her options. She could still leave as planned, disappearing before Elliott was released. Or she could stay and testify against him, finally speaking the truth about the years of abuse. But what then? Even if Elliott went to prison, she would still be a married woman with no means of support in a town where everyone would know her shame. Decision made, Virginia gathered her hidden bundle and a few more necessities. She would go to town, check on Kieran, and then continue on to wherever fate led her. Anything was better than waiting for Elliott's revenge. The walk to Blackwater Creek took over an hour, and Virginia was exhausted by the time she reached the small frontier town. She made her way to the doctor's office, her heart pounding with nerves. What would she say to Kieran? How could she thank him for inadvertently giving her this chance at freedom? Dr. Wilson's office was quiet when she entered. The elderly doctor looked up from his desk, his eyebrows rising at the sight of her bruised face. "Mrs. Lawson," he greeted her, standing. "I was just about to send someone to fetch you. Your husband, I've spoken with the sheriff," Virginia interrupted. "I'm actually here to see Mr. Callahan, if he's still here." Dr. Wilson studied her for a moment, then nodded. "He's resting in the back room. Not too serious, a few cuts and bruises, one cracked rib. Your husband got in some good shots before they pulled him off." Virginia winced at the doctor's matter-of-fact tone. "May I see him?" briefly. "He needs rest." The doctor led her to a small room at the back of his office. Kieran lay on a narrow bed, his torso wrapped in bandages, one eye swollen shut. Despite his injuries, he attempted to sit up when he saw her. "Virginia," he breathed, wincing at the movement. "You're here. Don't get up," she urged, moving to his bedside. "I heard what happened. I'm so sorry." Kieran shook his head. "Don't apologize for him. How are you?" "Did he hurt you after he saw us talking?" Virginia nodded, unable to lie to him. "But I'm leaving, Kieran. I've packed what I can carry. I'm not going back to that house." Relief flooded his features. "Good, that's good. Where will you go?" "I don't know yet. East, perhaps." "Somewhere I can teach again." Kieran reached for her hand, his touch gentle despite his bruised knuckles. "Virginia, stay at the Garrett Ranch until you decide. Mrs. Garrett would welcome the company and you'd be safe there." The offer tempted her, but Virginia hesitated. People will talk. After what Elliott said in town. "Let them talk," Kieran said firmly. "You've done nothing wrong." The simple declaration, "You've done nothing wrong," broke something inside Virginia. Tears streamed down her face as years of guilt and shame began to crumble. "He blamed me," she whispered, "for not giving him children. He said I was broken, useless." Kieran's good eye darkened with anger. "Then he's a fool as well as a brute. Virginia, listen to me. You are not defined by your ability to bear children. You're a person intelligent, kind, strong enough to survive what he put you through." Virginia wiped her tears, his words washing over her like a healing balm. "Thank you for seeing me, the real me." "Stay at the Garretts," Kieran urged again, "just until you're stronger and have a plan." After a moment, Virginia nodded. "All right, but just for a little while." Kieran smiled, then grimaced as the movement pulled at his split lip. "I'll be back there myself in a day or two. Dr. Wilson is just being cautious." Virginia stood to leave. "I should let you rest." "Wait." Kieran reached for her hand again. "Virginia, I know this isn't the right time with everything that's happening, but I want you to know that I meant what I said to your husband when he confronted me." Virginia frowned in confusion. "What did you say?" "I told him that any man who would raise his hand to his wife didn't deserve her." Kieran's gaze held her steadily. "I said that a woman like you deserved to be treasured, not beaten, and that if he couldn't see your worth, he was the broken one, not you." Fresh tears threatened as Virginia absorbed his words. "You hardly know me." "I know enough," Kieran replied softly, "and I'd like the chance to know more when you're ready." Virginia squeezed his hand, a small smile touching her lips despite everything. "Rest now, I'll see you at the Garretts." Outside the doctor's office, Virginia took a deep breath of the clean mountain air, feeling as though she could truly fill her lungs for the first time in years. The future was uncertain, but for now, she had somewhere to go where she would be safe. The Garrett Ranch proved to be everything Kieran had promised. Sarah Garrett, a robust woman in her 50s, welcomed Virginia with open arms and no questions about her bruised face. The ranch was larger than Virginia had expected, with a main house, bunkhouse, and several outbuildings spread across a lush valley. "You can stay as long as you need, dear," Sarah assured her, showing her to a small but comfortable bedroom. "Any friend of Kieran's is welcome here." Virginia settled into life at the ranch with surprising ease. Sarah put her to work in the kitchen and garden, tasks familiar enough to provide comfort but different enough from her life with Elliott to feel like a fresh start. In the evenings, she helped Sarah with the mending while Mr. Garrett, a taciturn but kind man, smoked his pipe by the fire. 3 days after her arrival, Kieran returned to the ranch. Virginia was in the garden when he rode up, his face still bruised but his smile bright when he spotted her. "You're looking better," he called as he dismounted. Virginia set down her basket of vegetables and brushed the dirt from her hands. "As are you. How do your ribs feel?" "Sore, but healing." Kieran approached her, his expression growing serious. "There's news from town. Elliott's been asking about you. The sheriff told him you left, but not where you went." Virginia's momentary peace shattered at the mention of her husband. "What happens now?" "His trial is set for next Tuesday. The sheriff asked if you would consider testifying about what he did to you." Fear coiled in Virginia's stomach at the thought of facing Elliott in court, of speaking publicly about her shame. "I don't know if I can." Kieran stepped closer, his voice gentle. "You don't have to decide right away, but Virginia, your testimony could ensure he faces real consequences. Otherwise, he might just pay a fine for attacking me and be back home in a week." The thought of Elliott returning home, his rage amplified by her desertion, chilled Virginia to the bone. "I'll think about it." Over the next few days, Virginia found herself drawn to Kieran's steady presence. Despite his injuries, he worked alongside the other ranch hands, returning each evening with the smell of sunshine and honest labor clinging to him. Sometimes he joined her in the garden, helping with tasks that strained her still healing body, their conversation flowing easily from books they'd read to places they'd seen. Kieran, she learned, had been born in Boston to Irish immigrants who died in a typhoid outbreak when he was 16. He'd worked his way west, taking odd jobs on ranches and learning the trade. Unlike many men she'd met, he listened when she spoke, valuing her opinions and thoughts. "You should restart your teaching," he suggested one evening as they sat on the porch after dinner. "Blackwater Creek has no school, but the children need education." Virginia shook her head. "I can't stay in Blackwater Creek, not with Elliott there." "What if he wasn't?" Kieran asked quietly. "What if you were free of him?" Virginia stared at the darkening horizon. "Divorce is nearly impossible, especially for a woman, and even if I managed it, the scandal would follow me wherever I went." "There are other ways to be free." Kieran's voice was careful, measured. "Legal separation, or you could press charges for what he did to you, if he went to prison." "I would still be his wife," Virginia finished, "still bound to him." Kieran fell silent, respecting her reluctance to hope for too much. After a while, he changed the subject, telling her about a colt that had been born on the ranch the previous spring. The day before Elliott's trial, Sheriff Briggs rode out to the Garrett Ranch. Virginia was helping Sarah prepare lunch when he arrived, his expression grave. "Mrs. Lawson," he greeted her, hat in hand, "I need to speak with you about your husband's case." Sarah discreetly excused herself, leaving Virginia alone with the sheriff in the kitchen. "Have you decided whether you'll testify?" Sheriff Briggs asked, accepting the coffee Virginia offered. "I'm afraid, Sheriff," she admitted. "Not just of seeing him, but of everyone knowing." The sheriff nodded sympathetically. "I understand, madam, but there's something you should know. After your husband was arrested, several women from town came to me privately. It seems you weren't the only one he hurt." Virginia's hand trembled, sloshing coffee onto the table. "What do you mean?" "3 women who worked for him at various times claim he forced himself on them. One of them says she conceived a child as a result, though she lost it early. The revelation struck Virginia like a physical blow. Elliott had blamed her for their childlessness, had beaten her for being barren when all along. "He can father children," she whispered, more to herself than the sheriff. "It appears so, madam." Sheriff Briggs shifted uncomfortably. "These women are too afraid to testify publicly, but they've given sworn statements. Combined with the assault on Mr. Callahan, your husband is facing serious charges. Your testimony about his violence toward you would strengthen the case considerably." Virginia's mind reeled with this new information. All these years, the fault had been with Elliott, not her. The weight of failure she'd carried suddenly lifted, replaced by a searing anger. "I'll testify," she said firmly. "He doesn't get to hide what he did to me, not anymore." The sheriff nodded, relief evident in his weathered face. "The trial starts at 10 tomorrow. I'll send a deputy to escort you." After he left, Virginia sought out Kieran, finding him mending a saddle near the barn. "Elliott fathered a child with another woman," she blurted out, still processing the sheriff's revelation. "Or nearly did. She miscarried." Kieran set aside his work, giving her his full attention. "Virginia, I'm so sorry. All this time he blamed me, beat me for being barren." Her voice broke. "And it was him all along." Kieran stood and wrapped his arms around her, heedless of who might see. Virginia melted into his embrace, finding comfort in his steady heartbeat against her cheek. "I'm going to testify tomorrow," she murmured against his chest. Kieran's arms tightened slightly. "I'll be there with you, every step of the way." The Blackwater Creek courthouse was packed the next morning. News of Elliott Lawson's trial had spread throughout the small community, and everyone wanted to witness the proceedings. Virginia sat rigidly in the front row, Kieran beside her as Elliott was led in, his hands shackled. He looked smaller somehow, diminished by his circumstances. When he spotted her, his eyes narrowed with hatred. Virginia flinched but held her ground, drawing strength from Kieran's steady presence beside her. The trial proceeded swiftly by frontier standards. Witnesses testified about Elliott's unprovoked attack on Kieran, his drunken accusations, his history of violent outbursts in town. Then it was Virginia's turn. With trembling legs, she made her way to the witness stand. As she was sworn in, she caught Elliott's gaze cold, threatening, silently warning her to keep their private business private. Taking a deep breath, Virginia began to speak. She told of the first time Elliott struck her, 6 months into their marriage, how the beatings escalated after she failed to conceive. The constant blame, the shame, the isolation. She described the most recent beating, after Elliott had seen her talking with Kieran by the creek. "He said I was broken," Virginia concluded, her voice steady despite the tears on her cheeks. "That I was useless as a wife because I couldn't give him children, but I've learned that he fathered a child with another woman and lost it. The fault was never mine." A murmur ran through the courtroom. Elliott lunged to his feet, only to be forced back down by the deputy behind him. "She's lying," he shouted. "She's been carrying on with that ranch hand," the judge banged his gavel. "Control yourself, Mr. Lawson, or you'll be removed from this courtroom." Virginia stepped down from the witness stand, her legs unsteady but her back straight. As she returned to her seat, her eyes met Kieran's, and the pride she saw there gave her strength. The trial concluded that afternoon. Elliott was found guilty on all counts: assault on Kieran, assault on Virginia, and improper conduct with his female employees. The judge sentenced him to 5 years in the territorial prison. As Elliott was led away, he turned to Virginia one last time. "This isn't over," he hissed. "You're still my wife." The threat chilled her, but Virginia refused to show fear. She watched him disappear through the courthouse door, wondering if she would ever truly be free of him. Outside, Kieran took her hand as they walked toward the horses. "You were incredible in there," he said softly. "So brave." Virginia managed a tired smile. "It's over, at least for now, but he's right about one thing: I'm still legally his wife." "For now," Kieran agreed. "But Virginia, 5 years is a long time. Things change, laws change, and if they don't..." He hesitated, then continued more softly. "There are places we could go where no one would know us or care about your past." The "we" in his sentence caught Virginia's attention. "Kieran, you don't have to tie yourself to my complicated life." I deserve to follow my heart," he interrupted gently. And my heart has been following you since the first day I saw you, even bruised and afraid. I saw your courage then, and I've seen it every day since." Virginia stopped walking, turning to face him fully. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that I'm falling in love with you, Virginia Lawson. And I'm willing to wait 5 years or however long it takes for you to be free to choose your own path. If that path includes me, I would be the happiest man alive. If not, I'll respect your decision." Virginia's heart swelled with emotions too complex to name. In just a few short weeks, this man had shown her more kindness, more respect than Elliott had in their entire marriage. "I can't ask you to wait that long," she whispered. "You're not asking, I'm offering." Kieran's eyes held her steadily. "And in the meantime, we have time to truly know each other, to build a friendship that could become something more when you're ready." Virginia smiled, the first genuine smile in longer than she could remember. "I would like that very much." The next 2 years passed in a rhythm of seasons at the Garrett Ranch. Virginia found purpose teaching the ranch children and those from neighboring homesteads. Her small classroom in a converted storage building soon became the heart of the community, with parents coming from miles around to ensure their children received an education. Kieran remained true to his word, a steady presence in her life without pushing for more than friendship. They rode together on Sundays, read books aloud to each other in the evenings, and slowly, Virginia's heart healed and opened to the possibility of love again. News came periodically about Elliott. He had attempted escape once and had his sentence extended. He had written letters threatening at first, then pleading, which Virginia returned unopened. Gradually, the shadow he cast over her life began to fade. In the spring of 1879, an unexpected visitor arrived at the Garrett Ranch. Virginia was in her classroom when Sarah came to fetch her, her expression uncharacteristically somber. "There's a lawyer here to see you, dear," she said. "From back east." Virginia followed her to the main house with trepidation. In the parlor, a bespectacled man in a fine suit stood examining the humble furnishings with barely concealed distaste. "Mrs. Lawson," he greeted her formally. "I'm Jonathan Whitfield, representing the law firm of Bentley & Sons from Boston. I've been searching for you for some time." Virginia's mind raced with possibilities, none of them good. "What is this regarding, Mr. Whitfield?" The lawyer opened his briefcase and removed several documents. "It concerns your husband, Elliott Lawson, or rather his previous marriage." Virginia froze. "Previous marriage?" "Yes, madam." To a Miss Catherine Dunning of Boston in 1868, the marriage was never legally dissolved before he married you in 1873. The room seemed to tilt around Virginia. "Are you saying that Elliott was already married when he married me?" "Precisely." Mr. Whitfield adjusted his spectacles. "Which means, legally speaking, your marriage to Elliott Lawson is null and void. You were never truly his wife." Virginia sank into a chair, stunned. How did this come to light?" Miss Dunning, Mrs. Lawson, technically recently passed away. Her brother was settling her estate and discovered the marriage certificate. Knowing Mr. Lawson had moved west and remarried, he hired our firm to investigate the matter. Virginia's mind whirled with implications. "So legally, I'm not married, I'm free?" "You are indeed unmarried, Miss Lawson." "Or whatever name you choose to use." The lawyer handed her the documents. "These papers confirm the facts I've outlined. Mr. Lawson committed bigamy, a serious crime. This information has been forwarded to the territorial authorities, and I expect it will extend his prison sentence considerably." After the lawyer departed, Virginia sat motionless, the papers clutched in her hands. She was free, truly legally free. Elliott had no claim on her, had never had a legitimate claim. Their marriage, the prison that had defined her life for years, had been a lie from the beginning. She found Kieran in the stables, brushing down his horse after a day's work. When he saw her face, he set aside the brush, concern evident in his expression. "Virginia, what's happened?" Wordlessly, she handed him the papers. He read them quickly, his eyes widening with each paragraph. "Is this real?" he asked, looking up at her. Virginia nodded, a smile breaking across her face like sunrise. "It's real. I was never legally his wife, Kieran. I'm free." Kieran stared at her for a long moment, joy gradually replacing shock in his features. Then, moving slowly, giving her every chance to step away, he pulled her into his arms. "Virginia," he whispered, his voice rough with emotion. "My beautiful, brave Virginia." She looked up at him, seeing all the love she'd come to cherish in his eyes. "I don't have to wait anymore, Kieran." "We don't have to wait." His smile was brilliant as he cupped her face gently in his calloused hands. "Virginia Lawson, no. Just Virginia, would you do me the great honor of becoming my wife? Not today, not even this year if you're not ready, but someday when you're certain it's what you want." Virginia's heart overflowed with a joy she had never expected to feel. "Yes, Kieran Callahan. Yes, I will marry you, and I don't need more time to be certain. You have shown me every day what real love looks like." Their first kiss was gentle, tender, a promise of the respect and devotion that would define their life together. Virginia melted into his embrace, finally allowing herself to believe in a future filled with love rather than fear. They were married that autumn in a simple ceremony at the Garrett Ranch. Virginia wore a dress of pale blue silk that Sarah had helped her make, with wildflowers in her hair instead of a veil. Kieran, standing tall and proud in a new suit, looked at her as though she were the most precious thing in the world. "I take you, Virginia, to be my lawfully wedded wife," he vowed, his voice steady and sure. "I promise to cherish and protect you, to respect your mind and heart, to be your partner in all things for as long as we both shall live." Virginia's eyes shimmered with happy tears as she repeated her own vows. "I take you, Kieran, to be my lawfully wedded husband. I promise to love and honor you, to share with you my thoughts and dreams, to build with you a life of joy and purpose for as long as we both shall live." The small gathering of friends, the Garretts, ranch hands, parents of Virginia's students, and townspeople who had supported her through the trial cheered as they sealed their vows with a kiss. At the celebration afterward, Sarah Garrett approached the newlyweds with a small wrapped package. "A wedding gift," she explained, placing it in Virginia's hands. "From Mr. Garrett and me." Virginia unwrapped it to find the deed to a small parcel of land adjoining the Garrett property, with plans for a modest house. "We can't accept this," Kieran began, but Mr. Garrett cut him off with a rare smile. "You can and you will. You're the best foreman I've ever had. Callahan and Virginia's school has brought life to this community. Consider it an investment in keeping you both here." Tears welled in Virginia's eyes as she embraced the older couple. "Thank you for everything." That night, in the small cabin the Garretts had prepared for them, Virginia experienced for the first time what it meant to be loved by a gentle man. Kieran's touch was reverent, his patience infinite as he guided her past the fear and shame of her past into a new understanding of physical love. "You are so beautiful," he whispered as they lay tangled together afterward, the moonlight painting silver stripes across their skin. "So perfect." Virginia traced the planes of his face with wondering fingers. "I never thought I could be this happy." "You deserve every happiness, my love." Kieran kissed her softly. "And I intend to spend my life making sure you have it." Spring brought the completion of their new home, a sturdy 4-room cabin with large windows that filled it with light. Virginia planted a garden while Kieran built furniture, each of them creating a space that was truly theirs. Summer brought unexpected news. Virginia, who had believed herself barren after years with Elliott, discovered she was carrying Kieran's child. The joy that filled her was tempered with fear of losing the baby, fear of failing as a mother. "What if I can't do this?" She confessed to Kieran one night, her hand resting on her still flat stomach. "What if there's something wrong with me after all?" Kieran gathered her close. "Then we'll face it together. But Virginia, I believe this child will be fine because it was created in love, not duty or force. And if, for any reason, this baby doesn't come to be, we will still have each other. You will still be everything to me." His unwavering support carried her through the anxious early months. As her body changed, growing round with new life, Virginia found a peace she had never known. This child, whatever happened, was already loved, already cherished. In the winter of 1880, their daughter was born during a snowstorm that kept the doctor from reaching them. Sarah Garrett acted as midwife, her experienced hands guiding the baby into the world while Kieran held Virginia's hand, whispering encouragement. "She's beautiful," Sarah announced, placing the squalling infant on Virginia's chest. A perfect little girl. Virginia stared in wonder at the tiny face, the shock of dark hair so like Kieran's. "Hello, little one," she whispered. "We've been waiting for you." Kieran's eyes shone with tears as he touched his daughter's tiny hand. "What shall we call her?" Virginia looked up at her husband, her heart so full it might burst. "Hope," she said softly. "Her name is Hope." Kieran nodded, understanding all the word meant to them. Hope Callahan, perfect. As spring returned to the Montana territory, Virginia sat on the porch of their home, nursing baby Hope while watching Kieran work in the corral with a young colt. The sun warmed her face, and contentment filled her soul. She thought of the journey that had brought her here, the pain and fear that had once defined her existence, the courage it had taken to break free, the love that had healed her. Elliott remained in prison, his sentence extended by the bigamy charges, but he no longer held any power over her heart or mind. Hope finished nursing and gazed up at her mother with Kieran's stormy gray eyes, her tiny hand gripping Virginia's finger with surprising strength. "You're going to be strong and brave," Virginia told her daughter. "You'll know your worth from the beginning, not have to learn it the hard way like your mama did." Kieran looked up from his work and caught her eye across the yard. His smile, still as warm and genuine as the first day he'd offered her kindness, filled her with gratitude. "Your papa taught me that I had done nothing wrong," she continued softly to her daughter, "that I deserved love and kindness. And now we have you, our perfect Hope, proof that I wasn't broken after all." Hope gurgled in response, a sound of pure joy that echoed Virginia's own heart. The past no longer defined her. Here, with Kieran and their daughter, she had found not just safety but true happiness, a life rebuilt on love, respect, and the courage to believe she deserved both. As Kieran approached the porch, Virginia stood to meet him, their daughter cradled between them. "I love you," she said simply. "And I love you," he replied, his arm encircling her waist as they gazed out at the land that was now their home. "Both of you, more than I could ever express." Together they watched the sun begin its descent toward the distant mountains, painting the sky in hues of gold and pink. The future stretched before them, bright with promise and possibility, a future Virginia had once thought beyond her reach. She had done nothing wrong. And now she had everything right.